and then the finished polish.
So these axes initially ground by Brian at the wheel?
Brian and Zach now. Zach does some of the initial grinding. He basically takes some of the weight off, and then Brian finishes them.
Right.
That's the way Zach's apprenticeship works, basically. And that way, it works for Brian. Part of what I'm doing there is just checking that I'm not overheating the edge. This thing generates heat, particularly if you push hard on it. The harder you push, the faster it cuts.
Sure.
So if you're rushing the job on, you push very hard, but then it's very easy to overheat the edge.
Yeah.
So
and
I just every now and then I just check the temperature.
Yeah.
And if I want to go fast, if I want to work faster and push it harder, I can do, and just give it a little dip.
Heating it up then ruins the temper.
Yeah. So, I've got to take it up to like 220 degrees to bugger the temperature, which is like, a hot domestic oven.
Yeah.
So long as I can touch it, I'm way on the safe side.
Yeah.
But it's possible to, to microscopically heat just the very thin edge heats up long before the sort of fat metal at the back heats up. So you want to wear well on the safe side.
Okay.
This basically just removes the compound and polishes and cleans them up. So this is our WoodTools Woodland Axe, and it's I guess a middleweight, light axe. It's a little bit heavier than say a Grand Force small forest axe, but not a lot. It's an axe that'll do pretty well everything. It's light enough to carry in a backpack, but heavy enough to fell a tree, split firewood, carve tent pegs, carve a spoon. You can do pretty well everything with it. It's got a few nods towards carving. So for felling, it's got this sort of long, thin taper, which means that it'll fell trees nicely. Whereas our carving axe has a fatter, flat grind, shaped like a sort of a chisel, and that flat grind, Scandi grind if you like, is great for carving. But if you try to fell a tree with it, where you're trying to sort of really get deep penetrating cuts, then the shoulders of a Scandi grind stop it from penetrating very deeply. So this sort of thin convex grind penetrates much more deeply and better for felling. This pointy bit on the top is still nice for carving though. If you're sort of choking up on it here, then I'll use this pivot cut a lot for sort of fine carving. You can do that. But it'll also kind of split stuff as well. If you're at a camp and you split the firewood up, it'll do that job too. Pretty way. It'll do pretty well everything, so that's it. So this is the redesign of our what used to be called a Bushcraft axe, and we're now calling it a Woodland Axe. not for any particular reason, but we just wanted to give it a new name as we changed it quite a bit. So it's pretty much the same head, and the same grind. So it's primarily an aesthetic change, really. The old axes were cut off and then ground off flat here, which I didn't like this with this aesthetically so much, and then with a metal wedge put in. We made this change on our carving axes a while back. We found that the wooden wedge doesn't actually do any good. It makes we've done pull tests on it, and it works just as well without the metal wedge as with the metal wedge. And in fact, the metal wedge sometimes does harm, because sometimes it splits the wooden wedge, and you sometimes find that front half of the wooden wedge will pull out. So it's better without the metal wedge. So we've done away with that, which is good. And we sort off, sand the top off, leaves it nice, and then just trim it round with a knife. The other thing that we've done, this is the first axe design that I did, and the handle, I had this sort of swelled bit here, which I'd copied from old axes, and I kind of liked, because that's the weak point. It's the place that an axe handle tends to break at this junction with the head, and a bit of extra weight there. I felt was a good thing. But also, if I never do it now, but you see axe users who are not so proficient, if they're splitting firewood, will overreach and kind of miss the log and then hit the handle here. So having a bit of extra weight in the handle at that point, I felt was a good thing. But the drawback is that I found that when we force the heads on, then this shoulder means that it has a very definite stop point, whereas we've now gone over to a sort of a more gradual taper here, and that means that there isn't a dead stop point. You can keep forcing that on harder and harder until it's absolutely crammed on there, and it means that you get a tighter fit, and the head's less likely to come loose. And if it did ever come loose over time, then you can just grab that in a vise, hammer on the end here, force it in a bit harder, and that'll tighten it up. Whereas with this one, if this one comes loose, then you're really stuck with just banging some more hammer wedges in the top, which will solve the problem, but you can't sort of force it in anymore to wedge it up. And the other difference, since we were doing it anyway, some people found that the sort of front edge of this, I'd originally designed this with quite a narrow front edge, which just locates in that bit of my hand. But some folks felt that front edge was a little bit sort of sharp, so we've rounded the front edge a little bit. And we've got our WoodTools logo on there as well. And change the bottom of the fawn's foot slightly, or just very minor changes. Otherwise, it's the same axe, still works well. Comes sharp out of the box, ready to go, and that's it.
Nice.
WoodTools Woodland Axe. I'm quite proud of it.